everyone. I'm Christine Taum here with Professor Jenny Chatman from UC Berkeley. And she spent so much great time with me today talking about all things leadership and culture. So our last question is really about some of the work you did where you showed that through a case study at Genentech that they were able to incredibly achieve a 5-year plan in 11 months and to do that through culture change. And I wanted to talk about the fact that in today's environment, with so many companies and leaders now having to face this daunting task of having to do more with less, or with companies thinking about cutting costs in order to drive the business forward, is it really possible to still focus on culture change and leadership development in times of crisis? And what learnings do you have from your research to show that companies can really make this investment now to help them actually lead them through this crisis or help them achieve these goals?
Well, let me start with the latter part of your question first. The idea that somehow you would neglect to consider culture change or leadership development in the context of a radical shift like this is just not realistic. And I think anyone who is thinking that way is not thinking about leadership development and culture change accurately. Leadership development and culture change should happen in the context of the work the organization needs to do anyway.
That's right.
And the success story at Genentech is really about exactly that point. Culture change was not some separate entity that a small group was working on and then came up with the answer and dumped on the organization, right? People were heavily involved in changing the culture through the work that they were doing, which led to this incredible level of productivity, right? They hit their 5-year strategic goals, which were incredibly ambitious, like growing 25% in 11 months. And the sort of short answer, it's going to sound really trite, but the short answer to this question, how did they change their culture and get these incredible performance outcomes, financial outcomes, customer, patient-based outcomes so quickly? And the answer that's really trite that I say is, well, they developed a spreadsheet. Okay, so that sounds ridiculous, but what I mean by that is they treated culture change like any other business process that you're serious about. They tracked it. They developed specific initiatives. Each initiative had a set of objectives. Each objective was checked in upon periodically. Each initiative had a sponsor. There was accountability. And as a result of this, things happened. So initiatives were things like a new onboarding process that helped orient new members of the organization to the culture. There were a bunch of venues set up for people across drug franchises. So Genentech makes, in this case, it was a set of drugs for chronic conditions like rheumatoid arthritis and asthma. They had cross-cutting groups that would come together. The rheumatoid arthritis folks would come together with the, asthma and glaucoma folks to talk about go-to-market strategies that may not have been had occurred to people in those other drug franchises. So all of these efforts to change the culture, to emphasize innovation more, to emphasize a patient focus more, to emphasize collaboration and investment in people more, ended up having the impact of aligning the culture with their strategy and therefore accelerating strategic effectiveness. And when you are deliberate about culture and consistent and comprehensive with it, that's when you can get these kinds of results. So I'll stop there and see if you have another piece of the question, but I would also come back and say what that means for right now. Should I go ahead and do that?
Yes, please. Yes, please.
Okay. So right now, 11 months is too long even.
That's right.
So we're asking people for incredibly rapid shifts and norms are in flux, and there's a tremendous amount of uncertainty with the added sort of feature of this somewhat terrifying, health risk.
That's right.
So that combination makes things, more charged for sure. But the same ideas apply here: consistency and comprehensiveness. So that means making sure that people are getting clear directives about the non-negotiables, that you are using the social influencers to be first movers into the new behaviors and the new norms so that they can set the stage for others to role model them. And this is particularly important for top leaders. We know from the research that when top leaders are consistent across the top leadership group, that change happens much more quickly. When there are inconsistencies, people get confused. Right. So leaders need to come together and make some decisions about what their collective position is going to be, and make sure that that flows through all parts of the organization. People need to be rewarded, and successes, short-term successes, need to be celebrated. This is a way of helping people understand what the new behaviors look like. It's a form of vicarious learning for people. And then finally, you need to be compassionate with people and make sure that you give them the benefit of the doubt. We're asking people to do more with less. We're asking people to do things under scary circumstances with a great amount of uncertainty. So a kind of compassion and understanding that that enables people to kind of recover from whatever miscues they've gotten, allows them to get back on track.
Well, I think that's so helpful, and I would say it's probably the first people who have heard, use a spreadsheet. So, I thought that was just a great analogy. What it really means is make culture change a workflow like you do any other business process. And I think that we really believe that at Sounding Board as well. Why coaching is such a powerful model is that you integrate the learning into the work that you're doing, and the feedback that you get from these little behaviors that you're testing tells you that you're making a change or is having an impact. And so, I love that. And I think, it's been such a pleasure chatting with you today, Professor, and I really appreciate you sharing your thoughts, and hope that, hopefully we can find another time to connect again.
Thank you.